There is a message that many workplaces send without ever saying it out loud. The message is this: the more you give, the more you care. The more available you are, the more valuable you are. Saying no is a risk. Switching off is a weakness. Most people absorb this message without questioning it. And then they wonder why they are exhausted. Work boundaries are the most commonly broken boundaries in modern life. Not because people do not value their time, but because work comes with a specific kind of pressure that other areas of life do not. Your income, your reputation, your sense of worth, your relationships with people you see every day. When those things feel connected to always being available, saying no starts to feel like a career risk. And so most people do not say it. According to a survey by Deloitte, 77% of professionals say they have experienced burnout in their current job. A separate study found that 81% of remote workers check work emails outside regular hours. And 63% do so on weekends. These are not people who are unusually devoted. They are people who never learned, or never felt safe enough, to stop. So let us talk about what is really happening here. And what work boundaries actually look like. The first thing to understand is what changed. For most of human history, work had a physical location. When you left that location, work was over. The boundary was built into the structure of the day. Then technology arrived. Laptops, smartphones, messaging apps, email in your pocket. And suddenly, work had no location. It was everywhere. And the old built-in boundary disappeared. What filled the space was expectation. The expectation of availability. Not always stated, but felt. A message arrives at 10 at night. You see it. You do not reply. And then you spend the next 2 hours wondering what they thought of your silence. That is not a small thing. That is your nervous system staying on duty long after your workday ended. Long after your body sat down. Long after the people you love are in the same room with you. The cost of this is real. Research from the World Health Organization found that working more than 55 hours a week is associated with a significantly higher risk of stroke and heart disease compared to working standard hours. And overwork does not even produce more output. A study referenced by multiple researchers found that people who work extra hours are around 20% less productive than those who stop at the end of a standard workday. You are not getting more done. You are just spending more of yourself. So why do so many people keep doing it? Part of the answer goes back to what we talked about in earlier videos. The fear of being seen as difficult. The worry about how others will perceive a no. The old wiring that says staying agreeable keeps you safe. But there is also something specific to work. Something called presenteeism. Presenteeism is being present without being productive. Showing up, physically or digitally, to demonstrate availability rather than to actually contribute. In a remote world, this looks like keeping your status green. Responding to messages quickly to prove you are there. Sending emails late at night to show commitment. Attending meetings that have nothing to do with your work just to be seen. This is performance. Not productivity. And it is exhausting. Because you are not just working. You are also managing how your work is perceived. Constantly. That second layer of effort is invisible but very real. Think about what it costs. You finish a task. But you do not let yourself actually stop. You keep one eye on the inbox. You check the group chat once more. You stay visible a little longer. Just in case. That low-level vigilance never lets the brain rest. It stays in standby mode. Technically off-duty. But not actually off. And over weeks and months, that constant standby takes its toll. Not dramatically. Quietly. In the form of a tiredness that sleep does not fully fix. A low energy that follows you into the weekend. A difficulty being present with people you care about because part of your mind is still at work. The workplace rewards this behavior. Not because it produces results. But because it is visible. And visible effort is easy to confuse with valuable effort. But here is the truth. The most effective people in almost any workplace are not the ones who are always available. They are the ones who protect their focus, manage their energy well, and show up fully when they are present. Being always on does not make you more valuable. It makes you more depleted. And a depleted person cannot do their best work. They can only do more work. Now let us talk about what work boundaries actually look like in practice. Because knowing they are important is one thing. Building them is another. The first kind of work boundary is about time. This means deciding when work starts and when it ends. And treating those limits as real. Not aspirational. Not flexible every day to meet someone else's urgency. Real. This does not mean being inflexible when something genuinely needs your attention. It means that your default is off, not on. That availability outside your hours is the exception, not the expectation. One useful practice is creating a simple end-of-day ritual. Something that signals to your brain that work is finished. Close the laptop. Turn off notifications. Write down where you left off so your brain does not keep cycling through unfinished tasks at dinner. Walk around the block. Change clothes if you work from home. These things sound small. But they serve an important neurological function. Your brain needs a clear signal that the mode has changed. Without that signal, it stays in work mode. Even when your body is somewhere else. Cal Newport, a researcher who writes about focus and deep work, describes this as a shutdown ritual. A deliberate action that tells your brain, work is done for today. Everything is recorded. Nothing is lost. You can let go. Without that signal, the brain keeps returning to unfinished items. Not because you are a workaholic. Because the brain is designed to track incomplete tasks. It only stops tracking them when it believes they are handled. The ritual gives it that reassurance. And that reassurance lets you actually rest. The second kind of work boundary is about workload. This is the harder one for most people. Because it involves saying no to a person, not just a device. When someone asks you to take on more than you can handle well, saying yes is not helpfulness. It is a setup. For them and for you. For you, it means doing more things less well. Feeling overwhelmed. Producing worse results. Resenting the work. For them, it means getting output from someone who is overstretched. Which is rarely the best output they could get. A useful reframe here is this. Saying no to one thing is saying yes to doing other things properly. When you agree to everything, nothing gets your full attention. And full attention is what actually produces good work. You do not have to say no harshly. You do not have to refuse without offering something. You can say, I can do that, but something else will need to move. Which would you like me to prioritize? That response is not a refusal. It is an honest conversation about capacity. And honest conversations about capacity are far more useful to a workplace than quiet resentment and overextension. The third kind of work boundary is about communication. This is about how and when you are reachable. And what kind of communication you will engage with. This matters because communication has become the work inside the work. The meetings about meetings. The messages about messages. The constant stream of updates, questions, and requests that interrupt the actual work you were hired to do. Research from the University of California, Irvine found that after being interrupted, it takes an average of 23 minutes for a person to return to full focus on a task. If you are interrupted every 30 minutes, you are rarely, if ever, in deep focus. You are just moving from the surface of one thing to the surface of another. A boundary around communication might mean turning off notifications during focused work. It might mean not being available on every channel at all times. It might mean setting a norm in your team about expected response times, so that 24 hours is acceptable and immediate is not always assumed. These are not antisocial behaviors. They are professional choices that protect the conditions needed for good work. Now, a real concern people have here is what others will think. And this concern is valid. Workplaces have cultures. And some cultures punish people who seem less available than their colleagues. That is a real problem. And it is not something one person can always solve alone. But there is something worth considering. Most workplace norms around availability were never explicitly agreed on. They grew through behavior. Through unspoken imitation. Through people watching what seemed expected and matching it. Which means they can also shift through behavior. Slowly. One person modeling something different. Then another. And when you set a work boundary clearly and professionally, and the quality of your work does not suffer, you are showing something to the people around you. That it is possible. That the world does not end when you log off at 6. That a person can do excellent work without being available at all hours. That matters. Not just for you. For the people who come after you in that workplace. One last thing worth naming. Saying no at work is not always safe. Some workplaces genuinely punish it. Some managers do not respond well. Some situations have real stakes. This is not a video that will tell you to ignore those realities. What it will say is this. Even in environments where full boundaries are not possible, partial ones still matter. You can close the laptop at 10 instead of midnight. You can stop checking messages during dinner even if you cannot stop checking them entirely. You can protect a small amount of focus time even if you cannot protect a full day of it. You can write down one task you will not do after a certain hour. You can choose one meal a week where no devices are present. You can decide that Sunday mornings belong to you, not your inbox. These are not grand gestures. They are not going to fix a broken workplace culture on their own. But they are real. And they compound over time. Because every boundary you hold, even a small one, teaches you something important. It teaches you that you can. That the work survives your absence. That you are allowed to stop. That lesson, practiced small and practiced often, is how you eventually build something larger. Small boundaries, held consistently, are not nothing. They are the beginning of something. And your capacity, your health, and the quality of your work are worth protecting. Even in small ways. Especially in small ways. I hope this video brought you something meaningful. If you find it helpful, please like and share it with someone who may need it. Subscribe if you would like to hear more stories like this. Wishing you a calm and peaceful day.